what he deserves. That's glory. That's our faith. And that's obedience this morning. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. This morning I came to bring a word that he gave unto me, not anything that I did of myself. I take no credit. But this morning we're going to start out in Exodus chapter 2, verses 11 through 25. Exodus chapter 2, verses 11 through 25. Hallelujah. Glory to your name, Yahweh. Exodus 2, 11 through 25. When you have it, say, I got it, and I'm ready to go. I'm responding in faith and obedience. Hallelujah. Verse 11 reads, Now it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown, that he went out to his brethren and looked at their burdens. And he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his brethren. So he looked this way and that way, and when he saw no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. And when he went out the second day, behold, two Hebrew men were fighting, and he said to the one who did the wrong, Why are you striking your companion? Then he said, Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Don't that sound like us? Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? So Moses feared and said, Surely this thing is known. Then Pharaoh heard of this matter. He sought to kill Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dealt in the land of Midian and sat down by a well. Now the priests of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water, and they filled the troughs to water their father's flock. Then the shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. When they came to Reuel, their father, he said, How is it that you have come back so soon today? And they said, An Egyptian delivered us from the hand of the shepherds, and he also drew enough water for us and watered the flock. So he said to his daughters, And where is he? Why is it that you have left the man? Call him, that he might eat bread. Then Moses was content. Verse 20. So he said, okay, I read 21, I'm right. Then Moses was content to live with the man, and he gave Zipporah his daughter to Moses. And she bore him a son, and he called his name Gershom, for he said, I have been a stranger in a foreign land. Now it happened in the process of time that the king of Egypt died. Then the children of Israel groaned because of the bondage, and they cried out. And their cry came up to God because of the bondage. So God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God acknowledged them. So what's the message that Yahweh has for us in this passage this morning? Let's start back at verse 11. You know I like to go verse by verse and tell you the details. Verse 11 says, Now it came to pass when Moses was grown that he went out to his brethren and looked at their burdens, and he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew. So let me give you a little bit of background on Moses before this came. This was during the period when Pharaoh was fearing the growth of the Hebrews. So he ordered that every male child be murdered. That the moment they crossed the matrix, their life was to be taken. So Moses' mother, in her wisdom, built him a little ark. That's what they called it, pitched with tar. When you read in the Bible, pay attention to the details. Pitched the little ark with tar and put him at the edge of the Nile. Now his sister walked along the reeds to watch where this baby was going, and Pharaoh's daughter happened to be bathing in the Nile, see the baby come along, and drew him. Pay attention to the words I'm using this morning. And drew him out of the water. So both of his parents was from the tribe of Levi. He was used and he was nursed by his natural mother. So I just told you this morning when we started how detailed God is, and everything he does is strategic and purposeful. So think about that. This baby went, and then God made it possible that his own mother was able to nurse him. So regardless of what Moses was parading around as, because he was parading around as an Egyptian, he knew who he was and where he came from. He was now grown and responsible for what he knew. You know, we like to say we're grown, but we don't like to take the responsibilities that come along with it. I seen too many posts talking about, I don't like adulting. Oh, but you want to be grown. Well, the two come hand in hand. So this is the exact words out of the Bible. It says Moses was grown. So with grown comes some responsibilities. So verse 12, it says, so he looked this way and that way, and when he saw no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. I'm talking about Moses, but I want us to secretly apply it to us. We good at this. We're good at that. Looking, oh, nobody don't see me. Oh, nobody in here know me. Oh, I'm free. Let me do my thing. Well, you better be careful of that. So he looked this way and that way, and when he saw no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. So we like to check to see if anyone is looking before we do our deed, and hid it as if the Almighty does not see and know all. We too busy worrying about what man got to say, how man is looking at me, how man is judging me. I'm grown, but I don't want to adult. But we forget that he sees all and he knows all. Verse 13, and when he went out on the second day, behold, two Hebrew men were fighting. And he said to the one who did the wrong, why are you striking your companion? Then he said, who made you a prince and a judge over us? Boy, how many years ago was this written, and does this not sound like 2021? Right now. Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? And we good at pointing out other people's faults. So Moses feared and said, surely this thing is known. Like this right here didn't help me in this situation because somebody saw me other than Yahweh. So in this, the pot calling the kettle black, and realized his dirt could be exposed. Okay, I'm going to play on words here. He buried the Egyptian in the dirt, and now his dirt is being exposed. Verse 15, when Pharaoh heard of this matter, he sought to kill Moses, but Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dealt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by the well. Now, some key words in here that I said, I know they got to have some kind of significance. The first one is Midian. Midian means strife. Was Moses not at that point of strife in his life, that he knew he wasn't an Egyptian? He saw the Hebrews being mistreated, and he was at war with himself, one for the other. Now, how do I say that? Because he wouldn't have killed that Egyptian for striking the Hebrew if he hadn't been in strife with what he saw going on. So Midian means strife. Midianites were descendants of Abraham, in case you didn't know, by Keturah, his wife after Sarah. Moses fled to strife to deal with some things. Strife is angry or bitter disagreement over fundamental issues. It's a conflict. So the second word I found key in that passage was well. A well is a spring of water as coming to light. So some things started to come to light to him and appearing impossible. So you know what else? When I was reading and studying this and I thought about this well, he sat by the well, and then I looked up well, and well said it was a spring of water. So when he struck the rock, this goes right back. It's in him. That's still from the singing this morning, when Minister Will told us that there are some things on the inside that need to come out, here's your witness to that. Verse 16 says, now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water, and they filled the troughs to water their father's flock. So Moses' name means drew out of the water. You can't get away from God's plan. He started him out, drawing him out of the water. When strife came and he realized, I got a conflict going on, he went and sat by the well. You can't get away from God's plan. You can reject it, but you can't get away from it. You can reject it because you are a free will being, and we love to say that. And it's really not anything for us to boast about. You can't get away from what he has for you. So 7 daughters, 7, perfection came to remind Moses who he was, drawn out of the water, to water or fill the father's flock, which was the Israelites that were in bondage, which was his people. Verse 17, then the shepherds came and drove them away. But Moses stood up, helped them, and watered the flock. I symbolize the shepherds being spoken about in this passage as wolves in sheep's clothing, because it didn't say they was evil, but they came and did something that wasn't so nice. So I symbolize them as being wolves in sheep's clothing. Wolves in sheep's clothing will always try to drive you away from your purpose in God. I'm going to say it again, because that was better than you responded to, other than Sister Rhonda. Wolves in sheep's clothing will always try to drive you away from your purpose in God. What is our purpose in God? Simply to worship and obey him. That when you have to stand, when you don't know what else to do, stand. Stand on what? His word. Why? It doesn't return to him void. He helped them water their flock, not knowing it was preparation for what he was called to do. What's your calling, and are you in preparation for it? Oh, you don't have to answer me, but I want that. Put it in your notes. Meditate on that this week. What's your calling, and are you in preparation for it? Is your calling buried in the sand in hopes that no one saw you bury it there? Though I'm not looking at nobody. I'm talking about the text. Verse 18 says, when they came to Ruel, their father, he said, how is it that you have come so soon today? So he knew they were back early. He knew something had taken place. So he asked the question. When you don't know, inquiring minds want to know. To get an answer, you have to ask. So here's something key here. Ruel, his name meant friend of God. How strategic for God to send Moses to his friend. He was a son of Esau by his wife Bashmath, the sister of Ishmael. He was the father-in-law of Moses, also known as Jethro. So that was the first time I ever made that correlation when I saw that Ruel when I was reading, and that's what we get for speed reading through the Bible. I was like, we've always heard him referred to as Jethro. Well, now you know. His name was Ruel, and he was also called Jethro. He was the father of Eliasaph, the leader of the tribe of Gad, at the time of the census of Sinai. He was a Benjamite, and he was an ancestor of Eli. You have to know what and who you are dealing with. Stop being a surfer. Stop taking things for what they look like, smell like, taste like, feel like, sound like, on the surface, and dig a little deeper. Now, you know he wasn't just Moses' father-in-law, but a friend of God with the wisdom of God strategically placed in Moses' journey. Because if he was a Benjaminite, when we start to think about all the wisdom he gave to Moses, If he was a Benjaminite, we know that means he had training in the Torah. So he wasn't feeding him no junk. He wasn't feeding him his opinion like we do today. He wasn't telling him to do something that he didn't have the guts to do himself, because we do that. We do that. So now you know he wasn't just Moses' father-in-law, but a friend of God, with the wisdom of God strategically placed in Moses' journey. Yahweh really loves us with all our flaws. He really does. He loves us. So I have a question for you. Who is strategically placed in your life's journey that you have surfed past and not recognized? I'll ask you again. You look a little puzzled there. Who is strategically placed in your life's journey that you have surfed past and not recognized? Who? Who? Tell your neighbor that your surfing days are over. We have to wade in the water, which is the word, and be patient. We have to take in the beauty of Yah's creation. You know I love the beach. Anybody that know me know that's my happy place. So I took it back to when I go to my happy place, that's what I'm paying. I like to wade in the water. I'm not so busy swimming because I'm like the typical African-American woman. I don't want to get my hair wet. Okay, I'm going to tell the truth and shame the devil. So I will put it way up high, and I'll stay out there, and I'll wade for hours. But I can swim, but I'm not so much as getting my hair wet. But we have to learn to wade in the water, which is the word, and we have to learn how to be patient. We got to stop being a microwave society. We got to stop wanting answers like that, because our ways are not his ways. Our timing definitely is not his timing. But we don't have any choice whether we want to admit it or not, but to accept it. He is sovereign. So we have to take in the beauty of Yah's creation when we're waiting. The sand, the birds flying along the shore, the sunrise and the sunsets. I'm just telling you a few of my little secrets when I'm in my happy place. And consider the beginning and the end, because I like watching the sunrise and I like watching the sunsets. Why? I'm confident in that he has my end already prepared if I just follow the path. Repeat this after me. What is Yahweh trying to bring out of me? Wow. Did we not just sing that this morning? What is Yahweh trying to bring out of me? We have to remember it's for the kingdom's sake and definitely not about us. I am just an usher to lead others to a seat in him. Verse 19 says, and they said, an Egyptian delivered us from the hand of the shepherds, and he also drew enough water for us and watered the flock. Your deliverance may not look like what you imagined, but its purpose is to get you out of the hands of what came to destroy you. I'm going to say that again. Your deliverance may not look like what you imagined, because Moses looked like an Egyptian, but we knew he wasn't. So your deliverance may not look like what you imagine, but its purpose is to get you out of the hands of what came to destroy you and give you sufficient sustenance to get you back to the Father. Pay attention. Verse 20 says, so he said to his daughters, and where is he? Why is it that you have left the man? Call him that he may eat bread. Eat bread. Don't leave the deliverer, but sup with him daily. Every second you can put your mind on him, put your mind on him. When you put your mind on him, your mind comes off your troubles. You know what? Because some things we just take to heart as troubles, and some of those things are things he ripped away from us for a reason and a purpose that we can't see at the time. You know, when you went, I know when I got burnt when I was a young girl, I had a first-degree burn on my thigh. And to make a long story short, I used to have to go to the doctor every other day for them to debride it. What does that mean? The thing looked like it was healing. It had a scab, and I would go. They would get a gauze and some Physoderm and scrub it off. And he was saying he had to do that for the tissue underneath to heal. Did that look good? Did it smell? It didn't smell good. It didn't look good. And it definitely didn't feel good. I was 9 years old. So I say that to say this. Go through the pain and go, because it didn't look good, it didn't smell good. I have a scar there, but it's not noticeable unless I point it out to you. So we may be left with some scars for some of the things we go through, but it's for our good. Because had I not gone and gotten my thigh debrided every day, I might not have this natural leg today. So when he rips something from us, it's for a reason. It may hurt, it may not feel good, it may not smell good, it may not taste good, it may not sound good, but we got to accept it and say, Lord, what is it that you're trying to pull out of me? Anytime he does that, he's got something better in mind. And you know what's important? So important, we may not even like it. We don't have to, because he's sovereign. So he said to his daughter, and where is he? Why is it that you have left the man? Call him that he may eat bread. So remember that. Don't leave the deliverer, but sup with him. Verse 21, then Moses was content to live with the man, and he gave Zipporah his daughter to Moses. I would be content to live with a friend of God too. Because you know what? Your friends, you give them favor, right? You in a long line. I'm going to take it back to elementary school. You're in line for lunch, and your friend come in late, and you say, come on, you can skip in front of me. So if you do that for your friend, what is God doing for his friend? Oh, so I would be happy to stay and be content with a friend of God. Content, definition, to begin, make a beginning, show willingness, undertake to do, be pleased, be determined, to undertake, to resolve, to be pleased. I'm going to repeat it for those of you taking notes. Content. It says Moses was content to live with the man. To begin, make a beginning, show willingness, undertake to do, be pleased, be determined, to undertake, to resolve. Content just took on a whole new meaning for you, because we knew what Moses had in front of him. So when he was content to be with the man, this is what he was content to now start to make a new beginning. He was content, meaning he was willing to undertake to do the assignment that Yahweh was drawing out of him. He was drawn out of the water so Yahweh could draw out of him. Verse 22, and she bore him a son, and he called his name Gershom, for he said, I have been a stranger in a foreign land. Now, he wasn't talking about Midian. He was talking about Egypt. That's where he was born. That's where he was raised. And he was raised as something that he was not. Now, it happened in the process of time that the king of Egypt died. Then the children of Israel groaned because of the bondage, and they cried out, and their cry came up to God because of the bondage. Now, you know, there's a difference here in what they did and what we do. They cried out, God help me, God save me, God help me to understand. And what we do, we want a pity party. I don't know why this is happening to me. Why I keep going through this? Why this keep happening to me? Why I can't get no farther than I got? How Sister Nikita got so much and I ain't got nothing? That's what we do. We don't cry and say, Yahweh, what is it that you have for me to do? I am a willing and obedient vessel. I am waiting for you to give me instructions on which way to go and which way to walk. So God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. So I say that to say this. Let's stop pity partying, and if we don't know what to say, just groan. Yahweh, help me, please. I am your servant. But make sure you're his servant now. Okay? Not in word, but in deed. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God acknowledged them. Now, acknowledge in this passage don't mean what we take it to mean every day. Acknowledge, the New King James Version used acknowledge. The King James Version used the word respect. And acknowledge or respect in this context means it caused them to know him. So when you want to have a pity party, he's just trying to get your attention. It's simple. When we get to the point of not knowing what to do, where to go, or where we are, groan. He hears, and he will cause you to know him. There lies our answers. The answer may appear like an Egyptian, but you have to know him to recognize who he really is. Another passage that I went to that helps solidify this teaching that Yahweh has given us this morning, Acts 7:30 and 30 through 32. Acts chapter 7, verses 30 through 32. Verse 30 reads, "And when 40 years had passed, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire in a bush in the wilderness of Mount Sinai. When Moses saw it, he marveled at the sight, and as he drew near to observe, the voice of the Lord came to him, saying, I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses trembled and dared not to look." So our second witness here, he looked like an Egyptian, but he was far greater. By the way, that's the title of our message this morning, Look Like an Egyptian. Hebrews 11:24 through 27. Hebrews 11:24 through 27. Verse 24 reads, "By faith, Moses, when he was come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter." When are we going to reach that stage? To be called a child of the king. To be called, not to just say it, not to try to boast in it, but to be called. To be called a child of the king, somebody else has to see it. Not you just saying it, but somebody else has to see it. Choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. Choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. Why did I stop and pause there? Because when we sit down and we figure out why did God do this and why is this happening and what, who, when, why, it's for a season. And better yet, be afflicted with God than to have the pleasures of sin for a season. Verse 26, "Esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures of Egypt, for he had respect unto the recompense of the reward. By faith he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible." So by faith do we forsake and not fear this world, this pandemic, our situations, our dislikes, our wants, for the sake or the recompense of the reward that awaits us? Because I don't care what happens to anybody else. When we go before the king, we got one job, and that's to give an account for ourselves. I can't go putting the blame on, well, that man you gave me, he made me do it. Those children you gave me, they made me do it. That girl you made me be friends with, she persuaded me. No, he does not want to hear all of that. He's going to say, why did you do it? It don't work like that. Verse 27, by faith he forsake Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. But I like the way the Message version put this passage. And it reads, by faith Moses, when grown, refused the privileges of the Egyptian royal house. Wow. So I asked the question, the privileges of the Egyptian royal house equates to our today, what I want to do, what I think should happen. This is how I think it should be. He chose a hard life with God's people rather than an opportunistic, soft life of sin with the oppressors. He values suffering in the Messiah's camp far greater than Egyptian wealth because he was looking ahead, anticipating the payoff. By an act of faith, he turned his heel on Egypt, indifferent to the king's blind rage. He had his eye on the one no one can see and kept right on going. I'm going to say that one again. He say, I have my eye on the one I cannot see, but I'm going to keep right on going. We got to encourage ourselves this morning. By an act of faith, he kept the Passover. So see, he was still obedient. Regardless of what it looked like, felt like, sounded like, he still kept it. And I just had to throw that in there because Passover is coming. By the act of faith, he kept the Passover feast and sprinkled Passover blood on each house so that the destroyer of the firstborn wouldn't touch him. You know, this speaks obedience in so many ways. First, obedience in what God said to do. Secondly, obedience and look at the reward. Because he was obedient, their firstborns weren't taken. By an act of faith, he walked through the Red Sea on dry ground. The Egyptians tried it, and they drowned. I say that this morning as I come to my close, all in God's timing. What may look like an Egyptian can very well be your deliverer. What looks like an Egyptian can very well be your deliverer. Take the time to acknowledge his time and get to know him when he appears. His timing, not yours. His way, not yours. Regardless of how it tastes, look. Why I keep talking about what it tastes, looks, smells, sound, feel like? Why? Because those things are important to us. If something don't look appealing on our plate, we won't eat it. If it don't smell appealing, we won't eat it or drink it. If it don't sound right, we won't listen to it. So those things are important. I'm doing those things purposely this morning, regardless of how it tastes, looks, feels, smells, or sounds. Get to know your deliverer. In other words, let's stop having pity parties with ourselves. Let's get to know our deliverer. His ways and thoughts are not ours, and his timing, whether we believe it or not, is always perfect. It looks like an Egyptian, or is it the deliverer? This isn't to make you say, but to know that you know that you know who your deliverer is. Please pay attention to the details.